In the field of art, the only difference between a radical and a conservative is 10 years, meaning that art too is of the present world. The Me Too syndrome is alive and well. John Olsen's career charts such a journey, from young radical to bohemian in Australia's art establishment. Considered by some as an early acolyte of Chagall, with a touch of Picasso spice, Olsen was part of the generation of Australian artists who, in pursuit of the avant-garde, left Australia to tour Europe, then return with big ideas and matching ambitions, not always abilities. His move from rebellious phase in the 50s, picketing the archly conservative Archibald Prize, to his triumphant return in the early 1960s, when he won the very same prize, represented a rich irony. Olsen's early reputation rested on his paintings of the early 60s, big, colourful works, often composed around a large circular motif, edged with line work that hovers between abstraction and figuration, featuring a large accumulation of line and colour that appears abstract but from which sketchy images emerge. Flies around a hearty barbecue. Olsen's signature stylism is a conflation of perspectives and subjective responses to places and things. From animals, seafood paella, and the deep waters of Sydney Harbour to outback landscapes, flattened and contoured, with lines as if viewed from a satellite. For such artists, who defiantly painted in their own style, there was a real chance the world would eventually stop caring. An artist's output, when it stretches over many decades, has to try to make a new sense of all the repetition, the obsessions and false turns of art. From the late 1960s, Olsen produced paintings that seemed to make only incremental progress in subject and style. The commercial market wanted examples of artists' works in their signature styles, and most successful artists were happy to oblige. Olsen's major market was his canvases, but he also did a nice line in affordable works on paper, though the sheer ubiquity of his somewhat pedestrian frogs nearly marked the end of his career as a serious artist. But other works that seemed to maintain his painting style, such as his landscapes, evoked the work of Fred Williams. Olsen's last great works were his paintings of Lake Eyre in the early 1990s, as significant in their magisterial view of the landscape as his early work, yet pared back and simpler in their effects, still evocative of flies at the barbecue. Quirkily, Olsen late on turned his back on the harbour and the lake to paint his favourite Spanish paella dishes, proving that in the field of art, truly great artists can do, and critics say, whatever they like, as long as their meaning is oblique.
I'm an artist, as a dog is a dog. I didn't choose my profession. It chose me.
He was the ultimate artist in that even his appearance, I mean, he always had that little cheeky beret on.
He was a jolly Ollie. He could be a mischievous man, never meaning to hurt anybody, but his drive to create art often was at the sacrifice of others.
He is a model of an artist who is totally committed, totally passionate about what they do.
Described as the Australian art world's elder statesman, John Olsen's career as a painter stretched over 7 decades.
It's a wonderful, bittersweet situation. It is truly a time to celebrate his incredible life and his legacy to Australia.
Born in Newcastle in 1928, John Olsen began drawing at a young age.
I began as an artist at age 4, and my mother complaining about me scribbling in her cooking books.
Before enrolling at some of the nation's most influential art schools.
He's been on this earth for 95 years. All of those years, really, since he was a kid, have been as an artist and a poet and a raconteur. So it's hard to imagine him not here.
In the 1950s, he took his art and family abroad, settling in Spain, a country that would inspire some of his future pieces.
It really did change his way of looking at the landscape more intimately.
Eventually, he returned to Australia and to the nature and landscapes of his own home. Olsen was fascinated by Lake Eyre in particular, visiting multiple times to capture the site in his distinctive and energetic style.
He had a very honest and direct response to the Australian landscape. He wasn't pretending it was something else. He wasn't trying to find a sense of Northern European beauty in the Australian landscape. He took it for what it was.
He loved looking into ponds, quite shallow ponds, for instance. He would portray those in a way that only scientists probably had thought of them before, almost microscopically, but with this amazing sense of colour and line.
Amongst his long list of accolades, he won both the Sulman and Wynne Prize.
These are all platforms that reach a very broad audience. I think that broad interest really appealed to the Australian public and helped bring art into a broader audience in Australia.
But beyond his vivid depictions of Australian landscapes and waterways, he also won the Archibald Prize for this self-portrait, making him the oldest artist to win the award at the age of 77.
He won the Archibald Prize with a picture which was really about the loneliness of the studio and a moment of self-doubt. So he wasn't always the gregarious, confident man. There was another side to him which was deeply introspective.
He did not shy away from challenging the status quo, once describing the prestigious Art Prize as a chook raffle.
He was always a rebel. He pushed back against the establishment, and then he just got on with it and followed his own vision and his own dream.
For his service to the arts, he was awarded an Order of the British Empire in 1977 and an Order of Australia in 2001. Sydney Harbour provided lifelong inspiration for Olsen, and in 1971 he was commissioned to paint one of his most famous murals, Salute to 5 Bells, for the Sydney Opera House.
I was at first delighted and then very much sort of daunted by the task, because it's a huge space in that foyer of the concert hall.
It's alive, it's bursting, it's moving, it's contracting, it's expanding. And I think that's his message for the Opera House as it was opening. It's this lively space of culture that was changing in transition.
And while his work has had a home inside the Opera House for decades, in just a few weeks' time, his art will come alive on the building's sails, projected onto the building as part of the Vivid Festival.
Fate works in a very strange way. So when we began the process, none of us could have imagined that this would have happened. I mean, really, this is a story told by John, for everyone, for Sydney-siders and for the international community.
Being asked if he would be the guest artist to display his work on the biggest, most famous white canvas on earth was to him really completing the circle. He was so overjoyed.
John Olsen's family says he was painting until his final days at his studio in the Southern Highlands.
And when the moment comes, which is must, hurrah!